On a cold autumn morning, the sun had barely risen when Mariana arrived at the construction site. With her worn safety boots and a white helmet that seemed a bit too big for her head, she blended into the gray landscape of concrete and steel. At 32, with a body sculpted by years of hard work, she was no stranger to this world. But for that particular team, she was the newcomer. And, to her misfortune, she was the newcomer whom everyone underestimated, including the foreman, Mr. Rodrigues. Mr. Rodrigues was a man of few words and many habits, a foundation in his own way, built on years of experience and the unwavering belief that certain things just were. And, for him, masonry was a man's trade. When the contractor informed him that a new bricklayer would be joining the team, he had already rolled his eyes. Upon seeing Mariana, he let out an audible sigh. "Mariana, is that it?" he asked without even looking at her. "Look, we don't have time for games here. This is a serious job. Your job will be to carry the cement bags and bring the tools. The heavy lifting is for the guys." The initial humiliation burned in Mariana, but she was used to it. At every construction site, the story was the same. The distrust, the sideways glances, the whispered jokes. But she wasn't there to make friends. She was there to work and, more than that, to prove that masonry had no gender. She simply nodded, picked up her gloves, and began to carry the bags of cement, each weighing 50 kilograms, about 110 pounds. The strength in her arms, trained since adolescence, surprised some of her colleagues, but they soon returned to their own tasks, ignoring her. Days turned into weeks. Mariana was tireless. She carried bricks, sand, cement, and tools without complaining. But the chance to show her true talent never came. She was relegated to secondary tasks, while the other bricklayers, all men, built the walls of the new building. Mr. Rodrigues treated her with an indifference that was almost more painful than hostility. To him, she was just the service girl, an assistant, not a real bricklayer. The turning point came with the construction of a feature wall in the building's lobby. The project was complex, with a zigzag pattern that required millimeter-perfect precision. The architect, a young and detail-oriented man, was closely supervising and had already rejected the work of 2 different bricklayers. Mr. Rodrigues was under pressure, and his patience was running out. "Rodrigues, it's not good. The line isn't straight. The spacing is wrong. This is a work of art, not a garden wall," the architect complained, frustrated. The bricklayers scratched their heads, trying to figure out where they were going wrong. It was then that Mariana, who was mixing mortar nearby, approached. "Excuse me, Mr. Rodrigues," she said, her voice low but firm. "I can try. The wall needs a different angle calculation for each row because of the pattern. The brick spacing also needs to be adjusted with each line so as not to break the symmetry." Mr. Rodrigues and the bricklayers looked at her as if she had spoken another language. The idea that the service girl could have the solution was absurd to them. The foreman laughed in disbelief. "You do this? Girl, do you think masonry is a game? This is for those who understand it, for those with years of experience," he retorted with a mocking tone. The architect, who had been watching the scene, intervened. "What's the harm in letting her try, Rodrigues? No one else is getting it right. If she messes up, we'll just tear it down again. Come on, give her a chance." Reluctantly, Mr. Rodrigues nodded, and the team of bricklayers formed a circle around her, some with malicious smiles on their faces. Mariana took the trowel, tape measure, and level. Her movements were confident, precise. She began to work, measuring, cutting, and adjusting each brick with a detail-oriented focus that seemed almost obsessive. Her rhythm was steady, unhurried, yet surprisingly fast. With each brick she laid, the wall began to take shape. The crooked lines aligned into a perfect pattern. The zigzag, which had previously looked like a scribble, now became a work of art in concrete. The smirk on the bricklayers' faces faded, replaced by expressions of astonishment. Mr. Rodrigues, who was watching with his arms crossed, let out a long, silent ah. He couldn't believe his eyes. In less than an hour, Mariana had completed an entire section of the wall. She stepped back and looked at the result. The architect approached, and his jaw dropped. He took the level and tape measure, checked every angle and every distance, and the smile on his face was unmistakable. It's perfect. Perfect, Rodrigues. How did she do that? She's an artist, the architect exclaimed, looking at the foreman, who was still in shock. The other bricklayers came closer, examining the wall. They touched the bricks, ran their hands over the surface, and shame settled on their faces. They had underestimated the woman who had been carrying their cement bags. One of them, the youngest, approached Mariana. Mariana, I'm sorry. We didn't know. You're the best we've ever seen, he said, his voice full of admiration. Mariana simply smiled, without saying a word. Mr. Rodrigues finally recovered from the shock. He approached her, his face serious and his gaze direct for the first time. Mariana, he began, and his voice no longer held a tone of disdain, but of respect. Where did you learn to do that? We don't see craftsmanship like yours every day. My father taught me. He was a foreman too. He taught me that the secret isn't strength, but patience, precision, and an eye for detail. He used to say that the foundation of a wall isn't in the mortar, but in the respect you have for the material, she replied, her eyes shining. From that day on, everything changed. Mariana was no longer the service girl. She became Mr. Rodrigues's trusted bricklayer, responsible for the most complex parts of the construction. The colleagues who had ignored her began to ask for advice. Humiliation gave way to admiration, and prejudice to acceptance. The construction site became a place where strength and talent were measured not by gender, but by skill and dedication. The wall she built became a symbol, a silent tribute to the strength, precision, and perseverance of a woman who, brick by brick, proved that the most difficult barriers to tear down are not made of cement, but of prejudice.